Hey, thanks for coming tonight to talk about giving and how God has taught us about giving. And do you know if Dawn's coming or not, or what her story
I'm
is?
not sure if she's going to be here or not.
All right. Well, we'll just start, and hopefully, maybe she'll get here. Who knows? I don't know. Let's first start talking about how you learn to give. One of the reasons we invited you guys is because you are tithers. You give 10% of your income to the Lord, and I just want to get a sense of how you learn that, or what stage of life. Maybe you can start, Brent.
I suppose the first time I actually started giving was I had basically nothing, and that's when I started giving. I just decided one day just to give everything and just trust God on it, and that's
So this was as an adult.
Yep, that was as an adult, probably just a few years ago, and that was like the first time I actually decided to give and trust in God with what I had.
Okay. What about you, Cindy?
I grew up watching.
Ooh.
Wow, you got a big one.
Ah.
I grew up watching my
Thank you.
parents tithe, and so it was just an automatic that you would tithe. But I had a misunderstanding about what tithing meant. I didn't get the 10% part.
So, but you knew they gave regularly. That's
Yes.
You kind of watched them do that or whatever. Cool.
So basically, when Cindy and I started, we one Sunday after a sermon, we were talking about, why weren't we giving back? Why weren't we looking
point,
at it
you were
closer?
giving nothing, or
we
you
were
were-
giving, but we weren't at 10%.
Okay.
And we really didn't think too much about it until then.
Okay.
My husband and I didn't start tithing until, we were probably married for a couple of years, and at that point we just decided that it was the right time for us, and we read some biblical passages and just decided that it was something that we needed to do, and just trust God and see where it took us.
Good. Good. Great. What other? The process of giving to God is more than just the amount we give or the percentage we give, but other things play into that in terms of our faith walk. What are some other things that play into that? What else have you learned about money, about God, about your faith by giving and by tithing?
For us, it's trust. To be able to give to God first and trust that He will provide. That has got to be the biggest thing that we've learned throughout the tithing.
And we give first. When we do our budget, that's the first line item, and we pay it first, and then we go from there.
And that was a change from before.
Very much so, yes.
Well, the big thing changed for me was I thought it was my money, and then when we got married, our money, but it's really God's. So we're just giving it back to Him. It
Okay.
wasn't ours to begin with, and that was the big change for me. Tithing.
Hi, guys.
Oh, hey, Don.
She did come.
How are you?
Hey.
Good. Good to see you.
We have another
We
plate.
have a little bit of leftovers.
I can give you some money.
Well, just
Yeah, we can give her the
Wow.
leftovers. I can give her some of mine.
there you go. Sorry. That's what you get for not being on time.
There you go.
Ah.
We all have plenty.
So you're talking about trust, about God increasing your trust in Him as you learn to give.
Yeah, since starting to tithe, there has never been a moment that God hasn't provided for us. And, being completely honest, since we started tithing, God has provided more to us than we could have imagined. So, as far as pure income goes, that's grown. And so has our faith and our trust in God throughout all of that.
And somebody said about giving first. I think you
We
said
do that first. It's the first line on our budget, and that cut comes out first, and then we work the books from there.
Which I think a lot of people. It's just funny pie down there. Actually, that's a good illustration of what you said about giving first. If we knew you were coming, then we would have set aside, a portion for her, right? But as it was, she got leftovers, and I think that's how a lot of us treat God as we give. We got to pay the mortgage or the rent or whatever. We got to pay the utilities. We got to pay all this stuff, and then we come to church and go,
Yep, there you go. This is what
yeah, you get the empty pie plate with
Right.
the cherries in it, kind of thing. I mean, that really is a good illustration of first fruits giving. Well, so,
Certainly don't want to give God the leftovers.
Right, exactly.
That's pretty horrible.
Yeah, it just kind of shows, where your heart is and what you're thinking of, and how you're living your life. Are you living it for the world, or are you living it for God, And if you give Him what's left over, then that's what you're telling God, this is what I think about you. I think that you come last. You're the last thing that I think about, rather than the first thing I think about when I wake up, or the first thing I think about when I get, paid from this wonderful job that you've given me and all this, like you're the last thing that I'm going to give to.
So it is really important not just to say, well, I want to give 10% to God, but it's important to do that first.
Right. Absolutely.
As a way of...
Well, I kind of wonder sometimes, I've heard somewhere that if everyone in our congregation tithe, and we'd have like $5, $6, $7 million, and our budget's like less than $2.
Right. It costs I think it costs like, for us, and people might not realize how much this is actually. It seems like a lot, but for every person who comes to church, man, woman, child kind of thing, every Sunday it costs in the neighborhood of $25 to $30 per person to run the church, which is more than what most people think.
Right.
So that's like, let's say for me, I have myself and Melinda, and we got Zach, so that's 3 of us. So for us, it's like $75 to $100 a week just for our cost.
Sure.
And if that's what we're given, then we're not even we're just paying for ourselves. I like to be able to give by tithing, to be able to give more, to be able to pay for somebody else who can't afford that, because not everybody can afford that. So
right. Yeah, I always think about like thinking.
People,
I'm not thinking about like that it even costs money. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even think it costs money to go to church. Like I'm there and it's gonna happen anyway. So really, does it cost money? I'm like, these churches, I'm sure have plenty of money, but I don't know. I'm just like, that's always what I've thought about, and I think that I always think about when I'm actually giving, I'm trying to give to like grow in this relationship with God. Like to give to Him and trust in Him with everything that I have, and just tithing has been one of those things that has been probably the most like the hardest thing to do, because I don't know, trusting God with the last, like everything that you have, is really hard to do when.
So it really is that God doesn't need your money. I mean, Jesus didn't die for our money, right? He died for us. So He really wants us. He wants
Absolutely.
our hearts. And so the money thing is just
an example.
An indication of where you're at with God.
For me, being new, I didn't really know what to do with it. And so I just kind of trusted in God and was like, okay, here's all I have, and this is how I love you, and I trust you with all this. But now that I don't see, actually physically seeing money go, it's kind of tough. And it seems like the relationship there kind of suffers a little bit because of that. But now, because
Dawn's really doing it for you as a couple,
right? And I don't really get to see it. But now we've kind of tried to work it out so that I actually get to see everything that we're donating every month and that kind of thing. Right. Stand over her shoulder as the button.
And for me, I give by texting. That's worked out for me. But what about you guys?
We give by check. Cindy has good handwriting, so she writes the checks out, and I get to put them in the basket. Okay. She always checks with me when I get back to the seat to make sure I put the money in this. Didn't forget it.
And do you give weekly, monthly? How do you do that?
Monthly first thing.
And we do very similar. We give by check, and for a lot of the reasons that you talked about, we still are maybe old-fashioned in the sense that we do like to kind of go through the motions and give that check every week. So we give weekly by check.
So really, everybody does different things.
Yeah.
Lots of different ways to do that. Well, hey, thanks for sharing about giving and your relationship with God. And I think that's really the key thing that I'm taking away from this, is that that our giving is really about our heart with God, more so than the cash. I mean, the cash is simply a way of expressing our love for God and our trust in Him. But really, what it's all about is our heart. So that's cool. Thanks for being here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.